This is Pick Up the Mic podcast on WWMVLP 95.5 and Radio 22. This is Pick Up the Mic podcast. I'll be your host, Corey Whitmore. This podcast aims to bring new voices into the conversation about how to eliminate racial disparities in education in the Madison Metropolitan School District. Over the past couple of months, we've had numerous interviews with African-American high school juniors and seniors, principals, teachers, mental health therapists to give us more perspective on how we start this conversation and how we find potential solutions. Here in episode 2, we are going to focus on standardized testing and the forward exam. So we're going to dive into kind of what those things are, what some people feel the benefits are. We'll go over some of the numbers from the 2018-2019 forward exam taken here in Wisconsin. But we'll also dive into, do we feel that these tests may be biased? And we'll also look into, do we feel that these tests are truly good indicators of achievement? So we're going to talk to our students, we're going to talk to our community leaders and get their point of view on this. But before we get started, I want to make sure that we're all starting at the same point as far as our understanding of what these tests are. So I'm going to read off a few things to you just so that everybody has that basic knowledge and basic understanding of the purpose and what these tests are for. Supporters of standardized testing feel that standardized tests offer an objective measurement of education and a good metric to gauge areas for improvement. They feel the tests offer meaningful data to help students in marginalized groups. They feel the tests are useful metrics for teacher evaluations, and that test scores are good indicators of college and job success. Now, the forward exam, this is a standardized exam that possibly your son or daughter has already taken. My son actually just took it a few weeks ago. He's in the Sun Prairie School District. I will go in and let you guys know, what it is and in the general overview for those listeners that may not be familiar with the forward exam. This information is straight from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. The forward exam is a high-quality, research-based, and affordable online assessment that meets Wisconsin's expectations. It is a customized assessment with innovative item types that include test items reviewed and approved by Wisconsin educators. During the 2015-2016 school year, Wisconsin rolled out a new assessment called the Wisconsin Forward Exam. The exam is designed to gauge how well students are doing in relation to the Wisconsin academic standards. These standards outline what students should know and be able to do in order to be college and career ready. The forward exam is administered online in the spring of each school year at grades 3 through 8 in English language arts and mathematics, grades 4 and 8 in science, and grades 4, 8, and 10 in social studies. So, 2019, there was a few articles that came out specifically looking at the results in Wisconsin, and a few things came out from those results. If you are looking to go on your own, and I always encourage you to go and do your own research, the Wisconsin State Journal in 2019 had a great article talking about statewide results and talked about Wisconsin as a whole. I referred to a 2019 article from the Cap Times that was more specifically focused on the achievement gap here in Madison. There's a few things that I found interesting in that article. The test scores that were released showed that Wisconsin had the nation's highest black-white student achievement gap in reading and math in grades 4th and 8th. It went on to say in both math and reading scores in grades 4 and 8, when the National Assessment of Education Progress measures the results, Wisconsin only trailed Washington, D.C. in its gap among black and white students. Now, if you were to go to nationalreportcard.gov, They have some tables set up that will show you results, 2017 results, 2019 results, and I'm looking at the gap. I'm looking at fourth grade reading where there's a 39 point gap for average scores, 37 point gap in fourth grade math, and then those gaps expand as we get to eighth grade. Eighth grade math, there's a 47 point gap between white students and black students. Eighth grade reading, 39 point gap between black students and white students. This article goes on to quote our former state superintendent, Carolyn Stanford Taylor, calling this gap a crisis. Current school board member, Savion Castro, wrote in the email that the results are a reminder the district needs to focus on literacy for black and brown students, as literacy empowers and liberates. There's a lot of reading to start off this episode, but I felt it was important. There's a lot of interesting point of views on the reasons why they feel that this forward exam is necessary and the results that they believe are beneficial for everybody involved. So I'm gonna save my opinion and we're gonna go ahead and jump into the opinions of our youth. So in our Zoom interviews with our high school youth, we posed the question to them. We kind of ran down a lot of the things that we ran down to you guys. We were a little bit more specific with some of the statistics, and I'll post these statistics on our Facebook page and our Instagram page at Pick Up the Mic Podcast, so that you can kind of see some of the graphs and some of the results, some of the figures that I've been able to look at. But we posed this question to them and we read down the results and we asked them if they were surprised by the results. And here's what they had to say.
I'm not really surprised because like some of the questions they've confused me. Like they didn't make sense. Like how they were typed out, how they were being asked. I just didn't understand them. And I feel like that trips up a lot of people. Or like me, I have test anxiety. Like, so even if like I know for myself that I'm very smart and I know all of this stuff in the curriculum that I'm supposed to know, I sit there and take that test and I go blank and I can't process it. And it's because, and I feel like tests are like, we take all these tests and they tell us, oh, this impacts everything. This is gonna get, if you fail this test, it could like have a negative effect on you for this and that. I feel like it puts a lot of stress on people, and I feel like it gives a lot of people test anxiety.
I'm not surprised, only because my own experience, like taking tests in general, like from when I was younger till now. Right. Honestly, I'm not surprised because for some kids, school is just not for them. Like, you have to think about it. The system puts kids in school and it causes anxiety, pressure, you never know. So from my experience, just being in school and taking a test at that young of an age, I'm like, okay, so like, I'm just thinking like, am I going to fail? Am I not going to fail? Like, I don't even know. And it's not surprising, but not in a bad way, because like I said, school is just not for everybody. Tests aren't for everybody.
Yeah, that really threw me off like that. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but like, I didn't think it was that big. Because I've heard people say like, oh, Wisconsin's one of the worst places to like raise Black kids and like stuff like that. But I guess it's different hearing it like in statistics, because it's like, that's like not people just talking, like that's
right.
Real.
Honestly, I don't think these results are surprising because the questions on the forward test or tests, like big tests like that, especially for like English or math, these are things that students of color, we can't relate anything to the questions. Like, oh, we'll read a book and it's like something totally different from anything we ever grew up with or have seen around us in our environment or neighborhood. And so when they come to questions like, if you were in so-and-so's shoes, what would you do? I don't know, because I've never been in this person's shoes. This is nothing that I could feel. I don't know what I would have done because I've never been in this position before. So when the results come out that way, it's not surprising, because it seems like those tests are made for students that got extra help or didn't need extra help, or that the text itself went towards.
The English one doesn't surprise me. The math one does, because I know a lot of people of color my age that are good at math, like really good at math and pretty decent in school. I just feel like they get discouraged by certain things in the school because it's kind of like you don't see yourself a lot.
Right.
In your teachers at all. I think I had my first Black teacher this year at MATC, not even at so. So it's kind of like you have a different connection and a different motivation to not only do the work, but I don't know, it's just different. Like you're like, I connect with this person. I know this person cares. They kind of understand me. And if I fall down, I feel like they're going to help me back up. Whereas I don't really feel like, not a lot of my teachers wouldn't do that, but it's harder to ask for that when you don't have that connection.
Right.
In a way, it's you're not surprised, but you're disappointed. It's kind of like, yeah, that does make sense. And I feel not necessarily that it's biased, but I think that it's obviously not a fair playing field if you're seeing, especially with the younger kids, that over majority, like over half of the kids are below basic in their proficiency in math and English. Obviously, there's a problem there. The taking the exam every year, whatever, that's not going to change the problem. These standardized test exams, that's not going to change the problem. And so I think it kind of makes it worse, right? Because when you take a standardized test, all you think is, this is all that I'm worth. Like, like you take your ACT or SAT, this number is all that I'm worth to a college, to the high school. So if I don't do good on it, I might as well not do anything. I'm not going to take it 3 times.
Right.
So I think that plays a part in it.
We'll be back with more interviews from our high school youth right after this. You are tuned in to Pick Up the Mic podcast with your host, Corey Whitmore. And we're going to go back and dive right back into these interviews with our high school youth. The question we posed to them is, we talked about all the statistics that from the forward exam of the gap between the testing score gap between Black and white students. And we went ahead and we asked these students, were they surprised by the results? And here's what they had to say.
I'm like surprised, but like not that surprised, like, cause like Wisconsin is like one of the most segregated places, like segregated state. So it's like white neighborhoods have like more resources and more opportunities and compared to the Black neighborhoods. So like the segregation like shows in the numbers of math and reading.
No, not at all. It's actually, if anything, I think the most shocking thing is to see the maybe I think I might have misheard you, but like 14% of the Black students that were scoring advanced or proficient, and then going down to like 4%.
Right. Yeah.
So just like that decrease in like the proficiency and the amount of students that are doing, like exceptional, especially like students of color, I think it's really telling of the system and how it's set up to make certain students succeed and then the other ones not. Not at all.
I don't think the results of the numbers were surprising to me, just because I see it like Black students are left out into like in classes, like we were saying before. If we're not in these honors classes, yet we still have to take the ACT, and they expect us to score 36, like we can't do that. So it's just not gonna happen. Like, which is why the scores are so low for us.
In a sense, yeah. Like I knew there was like a pretty big gap with the difference of Black students and white students in higher level classes, but I didn't know it was necessarily like a 50 student difference, essentially.
Were you aware that the numbers were
I was
around
not
this?
aware that they were that prominent, but I also feel like it's not an accurate representation of the academic achievement of our African American and Hispanic students.
So let's go back to something I read to you earlier about forward exam results. Now, they said that the forward exam results provide information about student performance, which allows students to reflect on their achievement. I can't speak for all the students. I can't speak for all the students of the district, seeing that we interviewed a small percentage from that district. But I did not get the feeling that any of these students interviewed were reflecting on an achievement by participating in this forward exam. To me, it felt quite the opposite. Many not motivated to take it, some didn't take it, and many people seeing it as more of a bump in the road or an obstacle, but definitely not an achievement. That is not something that I heard come from the students' mouths. It goes on to say that this test, the results allow teachers to target instruction to student needs and reflect upon their instructional practices. I am not a teacher in the district, so I cannot speak to that. Coming up next, we'll be speaking to Mr. Shackelford, who is a teacher in the district, and I will let him tell that perspective. But I hope it does. The numbers that we've gotten have not reflected that, but I hope instructional practices are being adjusted and changed and adapted. Time will tell. It also says that the results will allow administrators to more fully understand what students know and can do in order to guide curriculum and professional development decisions. A number of students will not agree with that point right there. Many of them felt it was it was anything but a true evaluation of what they know and what they understand. You can look at the gentleman in 4 to 5 AP classes that is achieving at an extremely high level in high school, but was tripped up on this forward exam of memorizing facts. I believe it won't only be these students that disagree with that statement, but many students across this district and other districts that will disagree with that statement. The last point, all stakeholders, the forward exam allows all stakeholders to check how ready all students are for college and career, especially those groups that have historically been left behind. I think these students we interviewed would disagree with this point as well, because many of them struggle with that exam, and they told you outright. They were truthful, they were honest, and said, "Hey, I didn't do well on this exam. I'm not a great test taker. I have anxiety when it comes to tests. My parents opted me out of the test," and all these different things. I will let the students continue to tell you. And we asked the students, did they feel that test scores were an indication of achievement? I'm gonna let them tell their story. So let's hear from them. But before we do that, I want to hear from Mr. Shackelford about his perspective being in the district and administering the test, what his feelings are on the forward exam and standardized testing.
So the forward exam, just to let you know, that doesn't even exist anymore. So this is just how these things work. You get these standardized tests. We don't even use that anymore. But those numbers, now we have the fast bridge and what they call the active net assessment. We've done both of those. Okay. The numbers were better because as a like a group in Madison, the middle schools, Jefferson, we scored the best. So, but still, now these I'm not surprised by those numbers because, like I said, standardized tests are going to result, those numbers are going to be the result of that because they don't take into account anything of the student, okay? Because English language learners, not everybody's reading level is at the same. Not everybody's lexile level is the same. So those tests don't take that into account. They don't take into account any gains, small gains by the student that you know the student. You know, they just basically you have a standardized test, meaning that all the questions are the same for every student. So that right there means that that's not fair. So like I said, when you say bias to it, it could be cultural. It could be biased because of the level of the student, just because not every student is at the same level, just because they're in the same grade. That takes into account none of that. So yeah, you're gonna have those numbers, but those numbers weigh heavy because of the system that we have created by those standardized tests resulting in certain funding for certain things, you know, so it's that right there is all messed up. And then in this COVID time right now, you saw what the White House did. They made it mandatory that we do these standardized tests. So it's a lot more politics behind this stuff too. But unfortunately, you get to see, and it's so like, oh, it's gasping to Madison. Like, oh my God, how does this exist? Well, because that test that's what it's going to show. It's meant to show that. You see what I mean? So it's no other way, because if you have kids that you have in 7th grade where some kids could read at a college level and some kids read at a 4th grade level, and they have to take the same exam. So it's set up for that. So yeah.
Don't go anywhere. There's going to be more Pick Up the Mic podcast coming up right after this. And we are back. You are listening to Pick Up the Mic podcast with your host, Corey Whitmore. So we had just, in our first section of the podcast, really talked about the Ford exam, standardized testing. What are the expectations for it? What should we be kind of getting from the results of these tests? But are these tests in themselves biased? You know, are these tests set up where, you know, students of color and our African American students are already at a disadvantage just by the way the test is put together? So let's dive into that. So I asked the students their opinion on if they believe that these tests may be biased. So let's hear what they had to say.
Yeah, I feel like it can be, not just because of like Black, white, Latino, Asian, but like the school system is targeted toward a very specific kind of learner. And then everyone else who doesn't learn that way kind of just has to navigate their way around how to either cheat my way out, how to guess my way out, or force myself to learn this in a style that I don't understand.
Right.
So standardized testing is a very small, compact 2-3 hour version of school.
Right.
And I don't really think it's fair, and I don't think it measures how smart you are at all. I think it kind of just measures like, how well can I guess in this moment? How well can I speed through this? Because some kids don't even care. They're just like, I want to just get this done. So I'm just going to, you know, click whatever.
Yes, I definitely feel that. Since I've been growing up, me and my sisters, our parents never let us take the test because that's always what they've told us. Like they felt that it wasn't fair, and you're told that your parents can opt you out. And when our parents opt us out, like we would get in trouble. Like we'd have to go sit in the library by ourselves for like an hour and 45 minutes, and then they were done with the test and you have to wait. And I can vividly remember teachers coming, like you go back to class, and then the teachers would like if you had like a good morning, like your teacher come in, you say good morning, everything is good, you have a relationship with your teacher. After the teacher was like, it wasn't the same, like it was more of like an attitude towards it, like Like, it was like, oh, why didn't you take the test? I don't believe that your parents said that. And your parent will text, like, email, call. My mom has called and told them before, like, this is not something we want our kids doing. And it was still like, it was always an issue. There was always an issue somewhere.
Yeah, actually, even today, I took the ACT earlier today.
Okay.
So yeah, I definitely think that they're biased, especially like with like the questioning. I remember speaking to a peer earlier this morning or today, and we were talking about like, oh, you know, the questions, they're not really necessarily geared for students of color because they're mentioning things and topics and experiences that people of color have never experienced or they would never have like a connection to unless they're well read and they're, you know, going out and making sure that they're like getting a lot of different points of views and experiencing things that they wouldn't typically. So I think I would definitely say that they're biased, and not only for Black students, but also for Latinx students and people who aren't, you know, Caucasian or, you know, who have that type of experience.
The tests themselves are tailored to the experiences of white students, specifically white male students, or I mean, in some cases, white female students as well. But like, I know that it'll ask questions about things like, you know, like camping or like, you know, how to sail a boat or something, and like they're not experiences that are, you know, typical of the Black or Hispanic culture where they learn to do a lot of things that are mentioned on the test. So like there might be new vocabulary in the test that just would never have came up in their regular day-to-day lives, which makes it discriminatory to students who do not take English as a first language, as well as students who are not white and don't share that culture or that lack of.
Yeah, I think adding on to what Zadia said, like some of us not don't have any experiences with, you know, some of the things that are said in the, you know, questions. Also, when it comes to like reading, like as you said, the colored students' reading percentage was very low. So sometimes, actually, when I took the ACT last year, I had a problem with some of the words because I didn't really understand them. It's just, you know, one of those things that my white friends grew up hearing those words and they were like, how do you not know that word? I'm like, I'm not familiar with this word in my household.
I want to say yes, but like I can't think of like a reason like why. 'Cause, like, but like I would say yes, they probably are, because I don't think like Black students are probably as well prepared, because it's like it's not even an equality thing, it's like an equity thing. Like some students need more support and teachers aren't willing to give that because they think they might be robbing the other kids of other things. So yes, I do think they're biased.
Listening to these responses make me think that, at least put the idea in my head, that there's, you know, it's not as simple as sitting down and just taking the test. There's so many other factors that may be leading us to the numbers that, you know, we've talked about earlier in this podcast when it comes to the gap between Black and white students. I had a great conversation with two workers at Anesis Therapy, and Fiola had a great point of view, not necessarily talking about what's in the test, but all the preparations and the things that lead up to the test, and an important role that plays in the test taking process. So please listen to this.
I would agree that it is biased, as Cliff said, as someone who did not grow up, you know, learning how to take these tests, having the resources and the training actually made it very difficult, and like it was high anxiety situation, you know, for some of us when we were, you know, given a time and this is how we measure your intelligence. And then you're like, man, you know, and then you get your score back and you're like, okay, I know I'm smarter than this, you know?
Right.
And then you come to realize, like we said, we can't be surprised given where we are, like where we are, you know, our geospatial, area right now in Dane County and the statistics. Just the disparities are, huge. And this just has a ripple effect on everything else, even in the schools, like the ratio, of the mismatch between, the race and ethnicity of teachers to students, and, how much attention is given to students of color, and, all these things affect our scores.
State testing is, we want to know how well these kids are performing in each of these districts to see how we can rate each district, whether they are exceeding expectations, whether they are just meeting expectations, or they're below expectations, and on and on. So when I think about the forward exam, which is the one that we take now, I do not want to sit here and tell you that it's useless. Do I think it's biased? Absolutely. I think every assessment, no matter what it is, it's biased, because every assessment that we take is built for white people. Right? I can't, the only assessment years ago that was created, and I'm losing track of the name of this, it was the Black, I think it was the Black Association test. Or I think it was the Black Association test, where it was a test really testing your Black understanding of things, like your Black IQ, basically. Right? And that was a test done years ago. And if you were to give white people that test right now, they right? So we're taking these tests every day that's not culturally relevant.
Right.
To who we are as Black and brown students. So yes, there are many biases in these tests, because these tests aren't built knowing who we are, what we've been exposed to, the differing way we use words, say words, possibly even define words. So there are biases within these assessments, because what these assessments are saying is that there's only one way in America to live and to understand the English language, and that's by way of what was created by white people. And that's not a knock on white people or anything like that. It's just that it's not allowing us to have our own cultural understanding in what we do.
Thank you for that point of view, Dr. Rainey Briggs. They've both given us some things to think about and consider. This podcast is about bringing in new voices, but also for some that may not have dove so deeply into some of these issues, to give a different perspective, an awareness that you may not have had prior to listening. We are going to right now jump into a few quick interviews from the students. These students were asked about the last part of the results of what they hope to gain from these forward exam results. Were to say that, hey, these are quote unquote indications of what your college achievement or career achievement may be like. So I posed that question to the kids. I said, do you feel that these tests are a good indicator of achievement? And here's what some of them had to say.
I feel like it's not. I feel like there are certain people who they're good at tests, they're good at the idea of studying, they're good at all of that, and that's just made for them. Everyone can learn differently. I just feel like personally for me and for a lot of people that I know that look like me, it's not a good way to show us like how much we know. I feel like I could show you more having a conversation with you and showing my intellect like that than writing anything down on a piece of paper and taking any type of scoring.
In this case, I definitely agree with you, because I'm more of a visual person. So projects with posters, my grades look way better because I can look and see what I'm doing better than taking notes and trying to remember it, or reading something and trying to memorize it for a test coming up. I don't think it shows anyone, because everyone doesn't learn that way. It's everyone's learning everyone learns a different way. So just giving one set of learning and then we do the same thing every year. There's never a switch. There's never a change. It's like we're robots, like we're being programmed to do the same thing most of every year.
So like the first part, no, I don't think testing is a good way to like show what you've learned, because it's like, not only it's like you, like, let's say like you've been learning stuff all year, you've been doing good on your quizzes and whatnot, then it gets to this one day at the end of the year, you take a test, like, and you bomb it, that means you're a failure. Like, no, you've been doing good all this time, and it came down to one thing to like measure your achievement. So no, I don't think. And like a lot of students, they're not test takers. A lot of people, they can't just sit there and like put down everything they know and like think it's gonna be enough. Like a lot of people aren't, like, we're not all like the same type of learners. So no, I don't think it's a good measurement.
I think that they provide a snapshot, like I said earlier. I don't feel it needs to be the end all be all. I understand the reflection piece, because when I do goals with teachers, when I sit down and talk to them about their teaching, I do look at their progress monitoring data, as well as if there has been any other data. But I think the key word for me is other data. I don't let one exam or assessment tell me just a full picture. I feel that we need to have an array of pieces. So for instance, if I'm looking at progress monitoring, which is done in the fall, mid-year, and at the end of the year, I'm looking for growth. Do we have students that are on the trajectory of moving forward, or are they stagnant? If you're looking at more of a state assessment, what is that really telling you? Is it giving you the same story or something different? As we all know, some kids do really well with exams and some students don't. We have students who speak more than one language, and so therefore trying to take some of these exams are really difficult.
Right.
So I think that there is a balance. I don't think it's fair to say that an assessment that I received on a child is the gospel. I really don't. I don't think that it's fair to use that, just one piece. And let's be honest, most assessments have some form of bias. So therefore, it's not a true reflection of what a student may know. It's what you are asking. Particularly, they may or may not know that answer, but that doesn't mean that they don't have answers for some of the information, because it's not a dialogue, it's not a conversation. It's either a yes or no answer.
Thank you for that, Mrs. LaShawn Whitmore-Sells. I appreciate how she was able to almost sum up kind of the different dialogues we've been having from what can these tests actually be used for? Is there some results that we are gaining that are of use, whether to the students or to teachers and administrators, confirming that there's bias on a number of levels with some of these tests, especially when it comes to students of color and African American students, and also letting that it's not an end all be all, that other data needs to be a part of these conversations when we are talking about curriculum changes, when we are talking and evaluating where students actually are when it comes to their academics. So I greatly appreciate that. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a quick break right here and come back on the other side and try and summarize things. And also we got to give our shout out to a teacher, counselor, administrator, or coach. We'll have one of the kids give a shout out to somebody in the district that has had a profound positive impact on them. So we'll be right back right after this. You all are tuned in to Pick Up the Mic podcast with your host, Corey Whitmore. Well, we're at the end of another episode here, episode 2, talking about standardized testing in the forward exam. A lot of different perspectives and interesting point of views for this episode. but we were able to dive into it, and hopefully everybody has a better understanding of what these standardized tests are. I know there is some confusion about, if some are taking the forward exam and if some are not. And I wanted to add some clarification. When we spoke to Mr. Shackelford, who is in the Madison Metropolitan School District, they are currently not taking the forward exam. They're taking an exam very similar to it, but outside the district, as you heard from Dr. Rainey Briggs, and even my son, who's in the Sun Prairie School District, they are still using that as their exam. So I didn't want that to be confusing to some of our listeners. But yes, hopefully you have that understanding. And we talked about the biases that accompany these exams, and you see how it comes in many different forms from those who are creating the exam to the language in the exam, to how the exam is administered. Some people may benefit from that format, while others may be at a disadvantage. So when looking at these results in their totality, and we had mentioned the gap between Black and white students, we need to be cognizant that there are a lot of other factors at work that created those results. As many of the students said, they weren't surprised. But there's a number of reasons why. They have been seeing what's been going on around them in the school district and with some of their peers. So even though the gap was for some wider than what they thought, it did somewhat make sense with what they have physically seen in their experience in school. So let's please take that into account when we're looking at these results and things of that sort, and as more results come out from these standardized tests. The other thing that we also looked at is, do we believe that these results are indicators of achievement? And I think in the forward exam specifically, they said it was, I believe it said it was an indicator for, career and school and college moving forward. These students have yet to write their future. But from my own experience as someone that struggled in high school and struggled for about 75 to 80% of my college years, I'd be the first to say that those standardized tests are not indicators, in my personal opinion. They were not indicators for me. I've grown up and I have my own business now and own my own studio and general manager at one radio station and run another internet radio station. But if you were to look at my testing results, I don't think they would indicate that I would be where I am today. We had a few teachers say that there are some things that can kind of pull from those results, possibly some problem areas. But I really like how Mrs. LaShawn Whitmore-Sells put it as, I need more data. To just solely rely upon a standardized test, a forward exam, or whatever it may be, is not enough. So I hope teachers and the district and everybody that's a part of this process of trying to close this gap are taking that into consideration, to say that, hey, this can't be our only set of data. We have to look at other things to really have a better evaluation of where our students are and what they need to succeed. So I appreciate everybody tuning in for this second episode. We are now going to get into the segment where we like to shout out a teacher, coach, counselor, administrator, somebody that has had a positive and profound impact on one of the students that we interviewed. So we're going to get into this right here.
Crystal. She's a staff at Vero Court Community Center, and she's the person who kind of like pushed me to do the ACT practices during my sophomore year. And we started doing that every other Saturday, and it really helped me like get
get a decent score on the ACT. And even now, even though the ACT is over, we still go there every Saturday to do scholarship work. So it's
nice.
She's she's had a very big influence on me.
All right, that concludes episode 2 of Pick Up the Mic podcast. Make sure if you want to listen back to it again, you can go to pod.co/Pick Up the Mic podcast, and all podcasts will be archived there. Make sure to add us on social media, Instagram and Facebook at Pick Up the Mic podcast. And give us a search on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, because we will soon be archived there as well. Thank you again for your time. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week, next Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on WWMV LP 95.5 and Radio 22. Have a great one.
Hey boy, black boy, go ahead, show off your joy. Hey girl, black girl, gon' show your magic off. Yeah, hey boy, black boy, go ahead and show off your joy. Hey girl, black girl, gon' show your magic off. Walk down that runway and let them stare. You're not your hair, don't have a care. Walk down that runway and let them stare. You're not your hair, don't have a care. Yeah, I know we're up against the wall, they know what's coming. A star reborn, behold the phoenix. Oh, so beautiful, yeah, is what they're singing. That melanin popping, your skin is glowing. Walking with confidence, yeah, it's showing. That melanin popping, your skin is glowing. Walking with confidence, yeah, it's showing. Hey boy, black boy, go ahead and show off the joy. Hey girl, black girl, gon' show your magic off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. Hey boy, black boy, go ahead and show off the joy. Hey girl, black girl, gon' show your magic off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. Hey man, black man, go ahead and show off the crown, fam. Hey woman, black woman, thanks for being so strong, yeah. Perfect and poised is what you are. Look at how proud our ancestors are. Perfect and poised is what you are. Look how proud our ancestors are, yeah. Moving forward, never looking back. All I'm speaking is facts. Hold on, let me adjust my cap. Now, bring them drums back. That's how my kin folks moved and danced. Now that's how the culture got its groove back. We're something special, that's how we do that. We're something special, that's how we do that. Hey boy, black boy, go ahead and show off the joy. Hey girl, black girl, gon' show your magic off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. This is our skin, we can't take it off. Hey grandma, hey grandpa, thanks for raising us from Pampers. This is my respect to the elders who went through so much. They brought us what they knew, left from clues. They taught us what they knew and stayed true. This is where black magic comes from. This is where black magic comes from. You know what, I've already said too much. You know what, I ain't said enough. It's time for us to show up when it's said and done. Come on, let's do what we gotta do and bring up the next ones is what we do. Come on, let's do what we gotta do and bring up the next ones is what we do. Hey boy, black boy, go ahead and show off your joy. Hey girl, black girl, gon' show your magic off. Hey boy, black boy, go ahead and show your joy off. Hey girl, black girl, gon' show your magic off. Hey boy, black boy, hey girl, black girl, gon' show your joy off. Gon' show your magic off. Hey boy, black boy, go ahead and show off your joy. Hey girl, black girl, gon' show your magic off.